In time, then, the empty tomb story was put together with the stories of Jesus' appearances to the apostles to produce the story of the resurrection as we now know it, in which the empty tomb and the physical resurrection is emphasized.
Most Christians readily accept that belief in the physical resurrection of Jesus is not a question of proof and never will be. His resurrection, and thus his divinity, is one of the great mysteries of their faith. But belief in Jesus' divinity is also based on another factor: church authority. Christian doctrine teaches that the authority of the church stems from Jesus himself, who appointed his apostle Peter to found the church, and that Christian beliefs today are very close to those held by Jesus' followers after his death. But Christian history is not that simple. Right from the beginning, Christianity was split between different factions vying for supremacy. The first group of followers we have evidence of is the church in Jerusalem under the leadership of James. To those Christians brought up with the belief that Jesus was the only child of Mary who remained virgin, it will come as a surprise to learn that James was the brother of Jesus. The cult of the Virgin grew at the same time as the first Christian histories were written. Hence their tendency to suppress the role played by James and other members of Jesus' family. But there's another reason why the nature of the early Jerusalem church is scarcely referred to. Its members would not have seen themselves as Christians. They were pious Jews, faithful to the Jewish religion and to the temple. They stuck to the letter of the Jewish law, including circumcision. The only difference with ordinary Jews was their belief that Jesus was about to return as the Messiah. It was in this way they believed he lived on. But these were not the only followers of Jesus. There was a second group of whom we have some evidence. Jerusalem was then, as it is now, a center of pilgrimage. In the first century, Jews flocked here from communities all over the Mediterranean, communities which had naturally fallen under pagan or Hellenist influence.
Jews from the dispersion did not speak Hebrew or Aramaic, but usually Greek. Thus, they were called Hellenists. One of these Hellenists, who had become a Christian, namely Stephen, was preaching a very different message. For him, the resurrection of Jesus was the beginning of the new age, an age in which the temple and the law no longer mattered, nor Jerusalem, nor the belief in Jesus as the coming Messiah.
Stephen's rejection of the temple and the law was regarded as outrageous. He was put to death and became the first Christian martyr. Other Christian Hellenists, forced to leave Jerusalem, founded missions in Antioch and Damascus, proclaiming Jesus' death and resurrection as the beginning of a new age. It's at this time that a pious Jew called Paul enters history. He'd gone to Damascus intent on punishing Christians who rejected the Jewish law. But Paul changed his mind and eventually became the driving force behind the Hellenistic or Gentile church. Paul later wrote that his conversion was the result of a miraculous vision. But the ideas about Jesus he was to champion had parallels elsewhere. In occult Jewish literature rediscovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls found here at Qumran. The writings describe a mythical heavenly Son of Man who would be a staff to the righteous and the hope of those troubled in heart. Paul's own writings suggest he was familiar with this literature, and that when he met the Hellenist followers of Jesus and heard their message, he became convinced that Jesus was this heavenly Son of Man. It was a major development in Christian belief. For Paul, Jesus was no longer simply a human Messiah, but a supernatural being. The same occult writings go on to say of the heavenly Son of Man,
"He will be the light of the Gentiles. All who dwell on earth will fall down and bow the knee before him, and will bless and laud the Lord of spirits."
It had been thought that Jesus' message had been meant only for the Jews. Paul became convinced this was not so. It was the second major development in Christian belief for which he was responsible. Paul's new image of Jesus and his enthusiasm to convert non-Jews drew strong protests from the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem. As Paul traveled the Mediterranean, establishing Gentile Christian communities, rival apostles from the Mother Church in Jerusalem dogged his steps. But were these the only groups using the name of Jesus to attract followers? Paul's letters suggest there was at least one other. Who they might have been has always been a matter of speculation. In 1945, at Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, two Arabs unearthed a collection of long-lost documents. The discovery confirmed that there once existed a third major strand of Christianity. They were called Gnostic Christians, from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. For them, Jesus' words were of secret divine wisdom, which once understood and interpreted correctly, could bestow personal salvation. Jesus was a teacher of this wisdom. One of the documents found was a collection of sayings of Jesus called the Gospel of Thomas. According to ancient tradition, Thomas was the name attributed to the founder of the earliest church outside Jerusalem, the Church of Edessa, now Urfa in modern Turkey. It soon fell to pagan persecution, and nothing is known for certain about Thomas or what he taught. But if the Gospel of Thomas reflects the views of the Thomas of Edessa, then this form of Christianity must have emerged very early and would have equal claim to reflect the true teachings of Jesus as the other strand.